You didn't think I'd check, did you? But I did. And now you're going to answer for every lie you've told in this courtroom. Judge Judy Files' voice cut through the courtroom like a scalpel, her words precise and unforgiving, slicing through the charged air with the kind of authority that comes from presiding over thousands of cases where truth and deception collide. The bailiff standing near the plaintiff's table stiffened, his hand instinctively moving toward the stack of manila folders resting on the judge's elevated bench. Karen Mitchell, seated rigidly in the defendant's chair, her fingers gripping the armrests until her knuckles turned bone-white, froze mid-breath. The gallery, packed wall-to-wall with spectators who'd waited hours in line for a coveted seat, leaned forward in unison, their murmurs evaporating into a tense, suffocating silence. Court reporters in the front row, their stenotype machines humming softly moments before, paused mid-stroke, fingers hovering above keys as if the very act of recording had become secondary to witnessing what was about to unfold. The overhead lights, harsh fluorescent tubes that cast everything in clinical, unforgiving clarity, seemed to burn brighter in that moment, throwing long shadows across Karen's face as her confident smirk, the one she'd worn walking into the courtroom 40 minutes earlier, began to crack like dried paint under pressure. Behind the glass partition separating the gallery from the proceedings, producers whispered urgently into their headsets, their eyes glued to monitors displaying multiple camera angles, each one capturing a different facet of the woman whose carefully constructed lies were about to detonate in real time. That single sentence, delivered with the calm precision Judge Judy had honed over 3 decades of separating fact from fiction, wasn't just a question. It was a verdict already rendered, a trap that had been meticulously set and was now springing shut with the mechanical certainty of a bear trap's steel jaws. And Karen, who had walked into that courtroom with the swagger of someone convinced she'd already won, who'd practiced her victim narrative in bathroom mirrors and rehearsed her pained expressions until they felt authentic, was about to learn the oldest lesson in the legal system. You don't lie to Judge Judy Files. But how did it come to this? What twisted path of deception, manipulation, and calculated fraud led to this moment where a woman claiming to be fighting for her rights found herself pinned under the spotlight of her own contradictions? And Judge Judy, with her stack of evidence gathered through phone calls, record requests, and the kind of investigative thoroughness that would make detectives envious, prepared to dismantle every fraudulent claim piece by methodical piece. The stage was set. The cameras were rolling. And what was about to unfold would become one of the most satisfying exposures of courtroom fraud ever captured on television. The courtroom was a study in controlled tension, its wood-paneled walls worn smooth by decades of testimony, absorbing the anxiety that radiated from every corner of the space. Rows of spectators filled every available seat, shoulder to shoulder, their phones silenced but screens glowing faintly beneath cupped hands as they prepared to capture what their instincts told them would be a memorable case. Behind the thick glass partition, producers in dark suits moved like chess players, their fingers dancing across control boards, adjusting camera angles, their voices crackling through headsets in urgent whispers that nobody in the gallery could hear, but everyone could sense. Judge Judy's bench, elevated 3 feet above the floor and crafted from dark mahogany that gleamed under the lights, commanded the space like a throne of accountability, a place where truth was the only accepted currency, and lies were debts that always came due, with interest. Camera 1, positioned to the judge's left, zoomed in slowly, its lens focusing with mechanical precision on the micro-expressions that would later be dissected, frame by frame in viral clips shared millions of times. Camera 3 held steady on Karen Mitchell, capturing her white silk blouse, pressed and pristine, chosen deliberately to project innocence, and her rigid posture that spoke more of rehearsed confidence than genuine ease. She clutched a brown leather folder against her chest like a shield, her manicured nails, French tips professionally done, drumming an anxious rhythm against the worn material. Beside her sat her attorney, a young man barely 30 in an ill-fitting navy suit that bunched at the shoulders, his eyes darting nervously between his client and the judge, shuffling papers that he clearly hadn't reviewed as thoroughly as he should have. Karen Mitchell had a reputation in the Oakwood Hills community, and it wasn't the kind anyone envied. Over the past 3 years, she'd filed 47 formal complaints against neighbors, everything from unapproved lawn ornaments that violated the HOA's aesthetic guidelines to suspicious vehicle parking that she claimed decreased property values. She'd campaigned aggressively, some said ruthlessly, to become HOA president, citing her unwavering dedication to community standards and property value protection when the board voted to install speed bumps near the children's playground after 2 near-miss incidents with speeding vehicles. Karen had erupted with righteous fury. Within weeks, she'd filed a lawsuit claiming the bumps had severely aggravated her pre-existing disability, demanding $15,000 in damages. immediate removal of all safety measures and a public apology from the board. Her disability claim? A severe spinal condition, degenerative disc disease, she called it, that supposedly left her unable to walk more than 20 feet without experiencing excruciating, debilitating pain that radiated down both legs like electrical shocks. She'd submitted thick stacks of medical documentation, doctor's notes printed on official letterheads with embossed seals, prescription bottle evidence, and even testimony from a physician she claimed had treated her for years. The HOA, overwhelmed by legal costs and lacking resources to mount a proper defense, had been on the verge of settling for $5,000 just to make her go away, until someone anonymously sent the entire case file to Judge Judy's production team. Judge Judy Files, now in her third decade of presiding over small claims disputes that ranged from the mundane to the absolutely bizarre, had developed an instinct for fraud that bordered on supernatural. A former family court judge who'd built a television empire on her ability to cut through nonsense with surgical precision, she possessed a reputation that preceded her like thunder before lightning. She didn't tolerate liars. She didn't accept excuses wrapped in victim narratives, and she certainly didn't let anyone manipulate her courtroom for personal gain or financial windfalls. When Karen Mitchell's case landed on her desk, buried in a stack of potential episodes, something had immediately triggered those finely tuned instincts, the kind of gut feeling that comes from presiding over 10,000 cases and recognizing patterns that others miss. The medical documentation was too perfect, the timeline too convenient, the damage claims too calculated. She'd done something Karen Mitchell never anticipated, something that would prove to be the defendant's fatal miscalculation. She'd investigated. The lawsuit itself appeared straightforward on paper, almost mundane in its simplicity. Karen Mitchell versus Oakwood Hills Homeowners Association. Her claim, the speed bumps, installed to protect neighborhood children from speeding vehicles, had caused her severe and lasting physical injury due to her pre-existing, documented spinal disability. She demanded $15,000 in compensation, $8,000 for medical expenses she claimed to have incurred, $5,000 for pain and suffering that she described in excruciating detail, and $2,000 in punitive damages. Additionally, she sought a court injunction, forcing the HOA to remove all speed bumps immediately and prohibiting any future installation of traffic calming measures without her explicit written approval. Her evidence folder was impressively thick, bulging with what appeared to be legitimate documentation, medical records spanning multiple pages, prescription bottles with pharmacy labels clearly visible, letters from physicians printed on official letterhead with addresses and phone numbers, even photographs of her using a wheelchair at community meetings, her face contorted in what appeared to be genuine pain. She'd included testimonial statements from her husband describing how he had to assist her with basic daily tasks, how their quality of life had deteriorated, how the simple act of driving home had become a journey through agony. The HOA's defense had been embarrassingly weak from the start. They'd hired a cut-rate attorney who'd barely skimmed the case file, his strategy amounting to little more than deny everything and hope for the best. After all, who questions disability documentation that looks official? Who wants to be painted as the heartless villain denying someone's legitimate medical condition? It seemed easier, cheaper, and less risky to settle for $5,000 and move on, rather than fight a battle that might generate negative publicity. Judge Judy, apparently, had different plans. Before we dive into what happened next in that courtroom, and trust me, you won't believe how spectacularly this unravels. Hit that subscribe button if you love seeing justice served with zero mercy and maximum receipts. Judge Judy doesn't play games, and neither do we. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever dealt with an HOA nightmare? Let's hear your stories while we watch Karen's world collapse in real time. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses, sliding them up the bridge of her nose with her index finger, a gesture anyone familiar with her show recognized instantly as the calm before the storm, the moment when her analytical mind shifted into high gear. She glanced down at the file spread open in front of her, pages marked with colored tabs and handwritten notes in the margins, then lifted her gaze back to Karen, her expression unreadable, neutral in a way that made experienced courtroom observers lean forward with anticipation. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, the only sound in the tense silence that had settled over the room like morning fog. "Ms. Mitchell," she began, her voice conversational but carrying an edge sharp enough to draw blood if you listened carefully enough. "You're suing the Oakwood Hills Homeowners Association for $15,000 because speed bumps installed in your neighborhood hurt your back. Is that the essence of your claim?" Karen nodded eagerly, shifting forward in her chair with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been waiting for this moment, who'd rehearsed her opening statement 100 times in front of mirrors. "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely. I have a severe spinal condition, degenerative disc disease at the L4 and L5 vertebrae. My doctor has documented everything extensively. Those speed bumps have made my life completely unbearable. Every single time I drive over them, it's like being stabbed with hot knives. The judge's right eyebrow arched slightly, barely perceptible but caught by camera 2's close-up lens. Unbearable. That's quite a strong word, Ms. Mitchell. She flipped open the file with deliberate slowness, running her finger down the first page. Tell me about this condition of yours. When were you first diagnosed? Karen launched into her rehearsed testimony, her voice taking on that practiced tremor of victimhood that she'd perfected over months of preparation. She described in vivid detail the constant, shooting pain that radiated down both legs whenever she sat, stood, or moved, the sleepless nights spent tossing and turning in agony despite prescription medication, the profound humiliation of needing her husband's assistance for basic daily activities that most people took for granted. She held up a prescription bottle, amber plastic with a white cap, the pharmacy label clearly visible, shaking it slightly so the pills rattled inside. Painkillers, she claimed. High-dose oxycodone that barely touched the surface of her suffering. I can't walk more than 20 feet without needing to stop and rest, Your Honor, she said, her eyes glistening with what might have been tears or might have been the careful application of eye drops applied moments before entering the courtroom. The speed bumps jar my spine every single time I drive over them, even at 5 miles per hour. It's torture, genuine physical torture that has destroyed my quality of life. The gallery murmured sympathetically, a low wave of compassionate sounds. Several spectators nodded knowingly, their faces reflecting concern. Karen's attorney smiled slightly, relaxing his shoulders, thinking this was going well, that the judge was buying the performance. The cameras captured Karen's composed expression, her hands folded demurely on the table. Judge Judy said nothing, but her pen stopped moving mid-note. Judge Judy set down her pen with deliberate care, the soft click of metal against wood echoing in the hushed courtroom like a warning shot. She folded her hands on the bench, fingers interlaced, her posture relaxed but her eyes laser-focused on Karen's face with the intensity of a predator calculating distance. So you're telling me unequivocally that you cannot walk without experiencing severe, debilitating pain? That's absolutely correct, Your Honor, Karen replied without hesitation, her voice steady and confident. And you have comprehensive medical documentation proving this condition exists and has been properly diagnosed by licensed physicians? Yes, Your Honor. Extensive documentation. Karen opened her leather folder with practiced efficiency, pulling out neatly organized papers separated by colored tabs, green for medical records, blue for prescription histories, yellow for doctor's letters. I have multiple letters from my primary treating physician, Dr. Richard Thornton, who's a board-certified orthopedic surgeon with over 20 years of experience. He's treated me consistently for the past 3 years. Judge Judy accepted the papers from the bailiff, who'd crossed the courtroom to retrieve them, and began scanning them with the methodical attention of someone reading a contract for hidden clauses. The courtroom fell into complete silence, broken only by the faint rustle of pages turning and the nearly imperceptible hum of the air conditioning system. Camera 2 zoomed in on the documents, capturing the official letterhead, Richard Thornton, M.D., orthopedic surgery, the embossed medical board seal, the signature flowing across the bottom in confident blue ink, the detailed medical terminology describing spinal degeneration and chronic pain syndrome. Dr. Richard Thornton, Judge Judy repeated slowly, as if tasting each syllable, testing its weight and validity. She looked up from the papers, her gaze locking onto Karen's with an intensity that made several spectators shift uncomfortably in their seats. And he's your primary treating physician for this spinal condition? Yes, Your Honor. He's considered one of the best orthopedic specialists in the greater Los Angeles area. Judge Judy nodded slowly, her expression revealing nothing, a poker face honed by decades of not telegraphing her thoughts until the precise moment she chose to strike. Ms. Mitchell, walk me through the timeline. When did you first start experiencing these severe symptoms from the speed bumps? Karen didn't hesitate, her answer coming smoothly, rehearsed to perfection. About 6 months after they were installed, Your Honor. It was March of last year when the pain became absolutely unbearable and I realized the correlation. March of last year, the judge echoed, making a note on her legal pad with slow, deliberate strokes. And prior to that date, before March of last year, you had no significant issues with pain when driving through your neighborhood? Not from the speed bump specifically, no, Your Honor. Judge Judy's pen paused mid-stroke. She glanced toward the HOA's attorney, a middle-aged woman with gray-streaked hair pulled into a tight bun, who'd been sitting quietly, taking notes but looking increasingly confused about the direction of questioning. Counselor, refresh my memory. When exactly were these speed bumps installed in the Oakwood Hills community? The attorney flipped through her notes, her finger tracing down a timeline document. According to the HOA board meeting minutes, Your Honor, The speed bumps were approved and installed in October of last year. 6 months ago. The gallery stirred instantly, whispers rippling through the seats like wind through wheat. The whispers in the gallery intensified, a low buzz of confusion and dawning realization spreading through the packed seats like electricity through water. Karen's face paled visibly under the harsh courtroom lights, the color draining from her cheeks as if someone had opened a valve. But she recovered quickly, her media-trained instincts kicking in with the desperation of someone who'd just stepped on a landmine and was trying to pretend it hadn't detonated. I misspoke, Your Honor, I apologize. It's been so incredibly stressful dealing with this chronic pain that the timeline sometimes gets confused in my mind. I meant October. Definitely October. The months blur together when you're suffering constantly. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement, but something in the atmosphere shifted perceptibly. The bailiff straightened his posture slightly. The court reporter's fingers moved faster across the stenotype keys, capturing every word with increased urgency. In the control booth behind the glass, producers leaned closer to their monitors, one muttering into her headset. She's got something. Stay tight on both of them. The timeline gets confused, Judge Judy repeated, her tone completely flat, devoid of inflection, which somehow made the words more damning than if she'd dripped them with sarcasm. I see, how convenient. She made another note, the scratch of pen on paper audible in the tense silence. For the next several minutes, she methodically worked through Karen's story, asking seemingly innocuous questions about daily routines, medical appointments, mobility limitations, each question appearing random, but clearly building towards something the audience couldn't yet see. Karen answered with practiced confidence, occasionally gesturing to her leather folder of documentation, her voice steady even as tiny beads of sweat began forming at her hairline. You testified that you can't walk more than 20 feet without experiencing excruciating pain, correct? Judge Judy asked, flipping to a new page in her notes. That's correct, Your Honor. And you require a wheelchair for attending HOA community meetings? Yes, unfortunately. My husband has to push me. It's deeply humiliating for someone my age to need that kind of assistance. I'm sure it must be. Judge Judy's voice carried no sympathy, just cold, factual observation. And you drive yourself to these meetings, is that right? Karen nodded, seemingly unaware of the trap being constructed around her with each answer. Yes, when the pain is manageable enough to tolerate sitting in the driver's seat. What kind of vehicle do you drive, Ms. Mitchell? Karen blinked, confusion flickering across her face at the apparent tangent. A Lexus RX 350, it's an SUV, why does my vehicle matter? Just establishing facts, Judge Judy replied smoothly. High-riding vehicle like that probably makes those speed bumps feel even more jarring, doesn't it? All that suspension travel amplifying the impact on your damaged spine. Exactly, Karen said eagerly, leaning forward. It's like being on a torture device disguised as a safety feature. Every bump is agony. Judge Judy nodded slowly, writing something down with deliberate care. Then, without looking up, she said 5 words that changed everything. Counselor, call your first witness. The HOA attorney stood, her expression shifting from confusion to something approaching grim satisfaction. The HOA calls Margaret Chen to the stand. Your Honor. Margaret Chen walked to the witness stand with the measured dignity of someone who'd been waiting years for this exact moment. Her navy dress pressed and conservative, reading glasses hanging from a silver chain around her neck. She carried only a smartphone, gripped firmly in her right hand like a weapon she'd been sharpening in secret. The bailiff administered the oath, and Margaret raised her right hand, her voice clear and unwavering as she swore to tell the truth. Judge Judy addressed her directly, bypassing the attorney entirely. Ms. Chen, you're a neighbor of the defendant, Karen Mitchell? For 12 years, Your Honor, Margaret replied, her tone steady and controlled. I've lived 3 houses down from Ms. Mitchell, and watched her file complaint after complaint against nearly everyone in our community. She got my son's car towed because he parked on the street during his birthday party, said it violated overnight parking rules even though it was 7 p.m. She reported my rose bushes to the HOA for exceeding approved height limits by 2 inches. She tried to fine me $300 for leaving my trash cans visible 15 minutes past collection time. The gallery murmured, a wave of recognition and shared frustration washing over the spectators. Several people nodded knowingly, their expressions suggesting they'd experienced similar treatment. Karen's attorney half rose from his seat. Objection, Your Honor. Relevance? This is character assassination, not— I'll determine what's relevant, Counselor. Judge Judy interrupted, her voice sharp as broken glass. Sit down. Continue, Miss Chen. Margaret unlocked her smartphone, scrolling to a folder labeled simply, Evidence HOA. 3 weeks ago, Your Honor, on March 10th at approximately 6:45 in the morning, I was at the Oakwood Hills Community Fitness Center. I saw Ms. Mitchell there. She paused, letting the statement hang in the air. She was on the treadmill, The courtroom exploded. Gasps detonated through the gallery like fireworks, sharp and involuntary, spectators turning to each other with wide eyes and dropped jaws. Karen shot to her feet, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's an absolute lie. I would never. My condition makes exercise impossible. Sit down, Ms. Mitchell, Judge Judy commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife through silk. You'll get your opportunity to respond. Ms. Chen, do you have proof of this claim? Margaret turned her phone toward the bench, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Video footage, Your Honor. 23 minutes of continuous recording showing Ms. Mitchell running, not walking, not limping, but running, on the treadmill at an incline setting of 8%. Speed set to 6.2 miles per hour. I need you to stop for just a second and appreciate what's happening here. This woman who claimed she couldn't walk 20 feet without collapsing is about to be exposed running on a treadmill. If you're loving this breakdown of complete and total justice, smash that like button and subscribe because we bring you the most satisfying accountability content on YouTube. Comment below, what would you say if you were Judge Judy right now? Because we're not done yet. The begging is about to begin. The bailiff connected Margaret's phone to the courtroom's display system, and the large monitor flickered to life with damning clarity. There, in high-definition video that left no room for interpretation, was Karen Mitchell in pink athletic wear and brand-new running shoes, jogging on a treadmill with the form of someone who exercised regularly. Her ponytail bounced rhythmically with each stride. Her face showed exertion, yes, but no pain. No grimacing, no wincing, no indication of the excruciating agony she'd described under oath. She even took a water break, laughing at something someone off camera said, her smile genuine and unguarded. The timestamp in the corner read, March 10, 2024, 6:47 a.m. 3 weeks ago. Karen's composure shattered completely. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks, mascara leaving dark trails against her foundation. She stood, her legs visibly shaking, her voice breaking into desperate sobs. Your Honor, please, I made terrible mistakes, horrible mistakes, but I didn't mean for it to go this far. You just wanted money you didn't earn for injuries you didn't have. Judge Judy finished, her voice ice cold and absolutely merciless. You wanted to manipulate your community, to control your neighbors, and you thought you could commit fraud in my courtroom and walk away with $15,000. Judge Judy stood, something she rarely did, and the gesture commanded instant, absolute silence. Ms. Mitchell, you forged medical documents. You lied under oath. You weaponized disability, something millions of Americans genuinely struggle with every single day, for your petty vendettas and financial gain. You came into my courtroom thinking your fake paperwork would fool me. She paused, letting the moment stretch. You didn't think I'd check, did you? But I did, and now you're going to answer for every lie you've told. The judge sat back down, her decision already made. Judgment for the defendant, Oakwood Hills HOA. Lawsuit dismissed with prejudice. You are ordered to pay their legal fees, $8,500. I'm also referring this case to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office for investigation of fraud charges, notifying the California Medical Board, and sending a transcript of these proceedings to every HOA member. They deserve to know who they've been dealing with. The gallery erupted in applause. Karen collapsed into her chair, broken and exposed. As her attorney helped her toward the exit, cameras following every humiliating step. If this breakdown of justice served ice cold gave you the satisfaction you needed, hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss another accountability story. Drop a comment. What should Karen's punishment be? Should she face jail time? And share your own HOA horror stories below. Your story might be our next video. Smash that like button if Judge Judy is your hero, because after this case, she's everyone's hero. Remember, integrity isn't negotiable. The truth always surfaces, and you can fool some people for some time, but you'll never fool Judge Judy. When deception meets preparation, justice wins every single time.